Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Google Plus Business Spotlight. So excited to have you guys here. I'm Stefan Ognanian. I'm joined each week, as you know, by Ben Fisher from Steady Demand. We're both from Steady Demand. And today we have a double date. Ben and I are bringing on Lee Smallwood and John Dietrich from NOD3X to talk about their tool that they have, social network analysis, but most importantly, how they use Google Plus, because it's kind of interesting to have a company that can really dial into the relationships and things like that using Google Plus. It's cool to be able to talk to somebody like that because we'll learn a ton. And we have we put out a call to action to everybody who had questions about it or to be able to share their own tips. So if you are here in the audience and you can do that, what are your favorite things about NOD3X? We want to hear about it. We'll try and bring it up here on the screen and do some shout outs. Before we dig in, speaking of shout-outs, I want to always thank you guys for helping to spread the word on Twitter. I'm just going to read a few names off. Got a lot of regulars this week, and we really appreciate you guys doing that with the GPLUSSPOTLIGHT hashtag and the click to tweet that we put out. So we have Carrie Ann Foster, Jennifer Marshall, Search Strategy, Monica Schmidt, Rebecca Quinn, and Denise Wakeman ×3, because she's got most of Twitter covered with all of her different businesses and entities, which is awesome. And Eileen Smith, and I threw one out there because you can't get started without me setting up a tweet that I can create a link from. Also, one more shout out, because this is really important. Now that we have the new comment tracker, we can actually track hashtags. And we're doing that. I'm going to bring one up just because it's really cool. I want to bring up one from Marilyn Moore. Every Monday, she shares a recap of one of our previous events in the Google Plus for Small Business community. Highly recommend you guys check that out. We really appreciate her. She does such a great job with that, and a lot of good insights as well as a recap and a link back to the show. So we really appreciate, Marilyn, that you do that for us. Always great information there, and I look forward to it every Monday just because that means I don't have to write it. So yeah, go back over to gplusspotlight.com if you guys are interested in checking out that recap or any of the other recaps, because this is our 32nd episode, and we got a lot of unbelievable content about how businesses are using Google Plus. How's that for a segue, guys?
Wow,
awesome.
Yeah, great job, Stefan.
Excellent. Good to see you putting sentences together on the fly. It's good.
Like that?
I do.
Cool. Well, hey, welcome both of you guys. We really appreciate you stopping in, taking time out to talk about NOD3X. And Ben, you had a couple of questions lined up from the beginning, so why don't we just dig into them? And we have some other questions from the audience as well that we'll come back to in a little bit.
Absolutely. So, hey, happy Hump Day, HOA Wednesday, everybody. Shout out Mia Voss for that hashtag. So, speaking of hashtags, let's get into a little bit. We've got 3 really cool updates that have happened to NOD3X recently. Lee, you guys have kicked it into high gear this quarter of the year, and and I think that's probably because you brought John on. So,
absolutely,
appreciate that.
All I can say is TGIJ, right? That's all I can say right there.
That's the one. Yeah, getting John on board, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to speak publicly about this because up until getting John on board, trying to juggle everything, manage a team of developers, and also manage the front side of the one-to-one communication through Google Plus, page, and all that kind of stuff, and the community, led to a bit of a bottleneck in certainly rolling out development that we needed to get out there. And then, I've known John for a while, and as much as I dislike the guy, he's very good at a joke, just kidding. No, I mean, he's been an immense help and resource, and a very valued member of the team, enabling us to crack on and get and roll stuff out that we wouldn't have got out possibly for months. So thank you very much, John. Great to have you on board.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Lee.
Welcome, Lee.
It's a pleasure working with NOD3X. I really enjoy sharing what it can do with folks. It makes my job very easy. What you guys do with the tool, the new updates you give and all, it really makes what I do a lot of fun. So thanks a lot.
Pleasure, mate.
Yeah, and then actually, of course, once John got his profile back, I mean, Just
Yeah, there was that.
It's probably easier to bring him on board.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit, yeah. He was a bit AWOL for a while.
So really quickly, let's just kind of go over some of the three updates that we've got. So the first one that I have here is what caused the spikes, and that's really all about bringing brand mentions, hashtags, profile mentions, and being able to basically dial in directly to a post, which you guys know I love stuff about posts, data about posts especially. But really being able to see, okay, what happened? So, Lee, take it away. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, for a while now, we've had the live feeds graph, and either in version 2 or on version 3, but it was never clickable. And it's something we've been trying for, but it didn't really happen effectively, or as good as I wanted it to happen. But when we rolled out V3, we had a lot of new graphs that we could play with and play around with the foresight of saying, well, we do want this to do this at some point. And one of the key things is within the live feed graph, over any one particular day, something can happen. Something can trend. There can be a whole bunch of new posts going out about a product, a service, or a brand name, whatever. And just to be able to click on the graph and see all of those posts, as opposed to going, oh, there's a spike in there, and then change the date just so you get that date range showing on the dashboard, and then going back. It wasn't a great user experience, and we were very aware of that. So now you can click on either of the points on the live feeds. If people have upgraded to Twitter, Facebook, and News, then you can click on each of those. If you're on the free plan, then obviously you can click on the spikes relating to Google Plus and just get all of the feeds from that particular day, all of the posts from that particular day. It just makes it a little bit more user-friendly, we think.
Right on, definitely. Now, the second update that you have is the ability to, and personally, I've been waiting for this one myself for a long time, and that is, and I think a lot of other people have too. So, hey, in the audience, if you were waiting for this, clap. That's all I can say. And that is the ability to switch between profiles and brand pages pretty much on the fly without having to go through the whole annoying log in, log out feature. Yeah, anything to say about that, Lee or John?
Yeah, I mean, if I can just quickly jump in on that and then obviously get John's take on it, because he's got different perspectives than I have. I never realized actually how. I knew it was a requested feature. I never knew how much until 2 o'clock this morning when I did the video, because I couldn't sleep, and I just put it out there to say, well, this is what you can do now. And the whole logging back out and logging back in as a page and not remembering username and have they set up, all this kind of stuff. And again, very frustrating user experience. And certainly to manage NOD3X and the NOD3X projects as a page, it really does help. And then being able to switch back, so you can completely isolate the brand or the organization or the business feeds as opposed to your personal stuff, which may have, you want to keep completely and utterly separate. So that's been integrated for a couple of weeks now, hasn't it, John?
Yeah, it has. It's very helpful to be able to do my analysis, find those posts and those places on Google Plus that I should be active as a page, and then just be active as a page. I don't have to then go switch over to another tab in my browser and then find that post on the business page. I mean, it saves me a ton of time. So yeah, really helpful stuff.
Awesome.
Wait, I want to just, this is hysterical, sort of, because you talk about till you did the video, right, Lee? So yeah. I think maybe 15 minutes before you rolled that video out, I did my own video for our team at Steady Demand about how to set up, set it up. We're just trying to improve our onboarding process. So I'm like, hey, you got a brand new client to set up, like legitimately brand new. Let me just document the whole thing and screencast it. And I hadn't seen the video, and I did the whole log out, log in, switch tabs, recorded the password, and then I saw the video, like, let me just goof around on YouTube for like 15 minutes before I go to sleep. And I was so pissed at myself. Like, not only did I got to redo the whole thing, but wow, this is awesome. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. So, I mean, I know you were the first one to jump in on the comments, and I always really appreciate your support, Stefan. I really do. You know, Stefan asked yesterday, and how many pages can I add? You know, and it's basically, well, how many have you got? You can. It's part of the free plan. It doesn't cost anything, and people can switch back and forwards between however many you've got. I've got all of my pages listed in there, and those that I manage for people. One of the things that we had to do because of the whole authorization aspect is that when you authorize or have multiple managers with using NOD3X for the brand page, if you like, we had to then let people reauthorize going back to their own personal profiles. Otherwise, all the managers would be able to access each individual's own profile, which again, you know, probably wouldn't be appropriate. Sometimes it may, you know, but at least now that's all covered. But you never have to, once you've authorized the page, you never have to go back and reauthorize it unless Google stipulates it. So.
Actually, that brings up really one quick question for you, Lee. So in that case, so does every manager of a brand page have to also have an account with NOD3X?
Correct. Yeah, okay. They have to have a personal account in order to do it. Yeah, but again, only a free one. For example, we were looking at different ways of integrating it. Now, it could be that, you know, the individual profiles just want to use the free plan, but from a brand, organization, or business perspective, they may want to upgrade. So it means that when a manager comes in that could be on a free plan, they will have the full rights of the page that's upgraded, and then can switch back and get the normal free. You see what I mean? So that was the way of doing it. Presumably in a secure way and most functional way, if you see what I mean.
Right on. Awesome. I think at this point, really quick, thanks for that, Lee. Hey, Stefan, you want to go ahead and give some shout-outs to some people in the audience? We've got some people tweeting and commenting, and we've got clapping.
Yeah, we have a lot of clapping. Thanks, guys. It's too much to get the clap. We'll let Mia clap for us on Friday when she does her hangout. Yeah, we have a couple of things too that yeah, just a couple of shout outs here. So let's see. Go back to my pinned thing. Like I said, we're using the new comment tracker app today, and we got one from Kristen Kramer. Because remember, we asked you guys to kind of talk about some of the things that you like about NOD3X, and she said definitely an HOA to put at the top of your list for today, especially after John walked me through some of the key features yesterday. Looking forward to it. That was this morning. I think we got a little bit more similar kind of love. So William Rock, loving the new dashboard. Thank you, William. Or Lee and John probably thank you more than I would, but then also Marilyn Moore chiming in as well. My favorite thing about NOD3X is continuing effort from both of you guys to make it friendly and helpful, and also the fact that you two, as well as the page, are I'm ad-libbing here for Marilyn, but I know she means this as well. You two, as well as the page, are so highly engaged and so just willing to help and things like that. So you know, this is a bit of a complicated tool, not necessarily from a functional standpoint, but you guys are improving that every day. But as far as what you need to do with NOD3X, and I think that's you know, why don't we jump into that? And I have two questions on that too, because that'd be a good topic here to talk about, and you know, we're about halfway through where we wanted to be anyway, so it's just good to talk about some of the reasons you'd be able to use Google+, as well as maybe tie that into how you guys are, as NOD3X themselves, are using Google+. First though, real quick, are there any beginner tutorials, and we can tie this into also, you know, hashtags and trying to set that up, because one of the things that it could be a little tricky is to actually get started on this. So we have a question on that, and then also there was a similar question. So let's tie the two of them together. Want to understand from Earl here how small businesses can really leverage this technology in their operations. Sort of like, how can I make NOD3X a daily part of my routine?
Yeah, two very good questions. Certainly from the hashtag perspective, it's where she was basically saying that she didn't get any results. And this is probably one of the ways I can kind of integrate how we use Google+, or how I use Google+ as well. So in order to first feed into NOD3X and then get the information I want out of Google Plus in order to analyze it, so it goes around in a circle. And what I actually do is, and can I share my screen so I can just let people know? Would that be all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So when I'm first doing some hashtag research, it's important to kind of understand what people are talking about, or what Google sees as an aligned hashtag with what you're putting in. So, for example, if I put a hashtag search into Google Plus and basically say, I don't know, should we say digital? Yeah. The results I then get from Google are in this top left section, all right, beneath the blue bar. And Google here or Google Plus will actually show me 20 related hashtags to hashtag digital. Now, this tells me that, you know, this is the if we go off into David Amaland land, as I like to call it, some semantic search and semantic web, where Google sees this and what's the semantic relationship to that. So we could actually, or I could actually take then any one of these hashtags and create a new project in NOD3X just using one of those hashtags, and I will get data from it. Yeah, so that's how I do a little bit of hashtag research using Google Plus, and this is done on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and I hope that helps you out on that question.
Just really quickly on that,
Can I chime in real quick? Because something I learned, when you start off your hashtag project, it actually then starts tracking. So you won't get the historical information, historical things like that. It starts tracking after you start. So set up as soon as you have that idea, just set it up and just let it sit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's all to do with not just Google Plus API, but other social network APIs as well. You know, sometimes they'll go back a few days and give you some data. Sometimes they won't. It all depends on the volume of it. So, but you've got to look at data streams based on, it's almost like a river and you're fishing. You know, if you throw your rod in and the salmon went yesterday, you know, you're not going to get any salmon today. You know, but it's all about as soon as you cast your rod in, basically is that point in time when you have the likelihood of getting fish. Similarly, when you put the hashtag out into NOD3X, then NOD3X will start pulling in exactly from that point.
Actually, Lee, one question that I had really quickly is when you're initially setting up the project, you can actually go ahead and say, do the search that you just did there on Google+, grab all of those related hashtags and set that up into one project if you wanted to kind of see the semantic web as it is right there in that one project.
Absolutely. And it's something I've been doing with tracking illnesses and diseases for like the last year. I don't know, I did a post on it a couple of days, and I think we've got over 30 phrases in one NOD3X project that's picking it up. And NOD3X, you can use quite a lot of hashtags and keywords, you know, but do keep them very specific, because then you can create a very informative and insightful dashboard project, as opposed to saying, I want to have a project which talks about humor and one that talks about digital strategy and one that talks about art, and you know, then the data is going to be useless for you because it's too generic.
Oh, so wait a minute, you're saying that I can't have my Star Wars Tuesday and my biking information in one shot? Come on, why not?
Well, I know, if you do, I'll just call you ET, because it's kind of like a good, like...
Nice. So, just so the audience knows, by the way, we are leaving Update 3 for the end of the show, so stick around. Update 3 is actually earth-shattering. Lee and nobody has talked about this before, so stick around, all of you, for the end of the show. Just want to leave that out there real quick. But why don't we go ahead and segue real quick, because we are the G+ Business Spotlight. And let's talk a little bit about how John and Lee work together as a team and use Google Plus for themselves. During this experience, what you're going to get is a little bit of a takeaway of how you can use NOD3X yourself for your business, or for your own personal hobby, for whatever the reason you're here on Google+. So to get that started, let's talk about, Lee, why did you bring John on in the first? Well, we already know why you brought John in the first place. You were too busy. But let's talk a little bit about how do you two manage the brand voice together? John or Lee, take it off.
If I start this one, and then I'll let John pick it up because he knows his stuff. For me, what was important is, I'm based in the UK. John's based in the US. NOD3X users, all over the world. So we're covering different time zones. My days were particularly getting very long, trying to keep up. And people kept on saying, "You're always up. When do you go to bed?" Especially you, Ben. I remember you saying that to me. As you're pinging me at 3:30 in the morning, just as I'm about to go to bed. You remember that one? So I mean,
I remember you were going down to the district one evening.
Yeah, that was it, mate. Just to see you if you were in your spandex shorts. That was it. So, I mean, from my perspective, having someone as reliable and as socially savvy as John on board to cover the different time zones where we do have an overlap, where we can not every day have a virtual hangout, but we are chatting between those times about stuff when we can and what the plan is for the day or whatever. Not every day, but when we can. It's invaluable because now I can actually switch off in an evening, get a little bit of downtime with my family, do whatever, and then John takes over, which is in the evening time for the UK, and then covering daytime for the US. So we pretty much got that area covered. So that was one of the reasons I specifically chose John.
Awesome, excellent. So, John, tell us a little bit about your experience. I mean, you were coming out of something. You had your problem with your profiles, and then you joined the NOD3X team. So, how was the adjustment, I should say, of learning the kind of the brand voice of NOD3X and working with Lee? And how did you two kind of coordinate that with each other?
It was really easy. I mean, it was almost as though it was happening before it started happening. I mean, excuse me. I had noticed NOD3X, I don't know, pretty soon after I started on Google+, and noticed that it was something that I really needed to understand better, essentially. So I started following Lee and NOD3X, and everything he wrote I would read and share, and really just studied the system, what it could do, what it was doing, what he was doing with it. Got to know Lee a little bit, and we just started connecting and hitting it off. We're two data nerds essentially, and so it's hard not to get along. So it works really well. I mean, like Lee said, we coordinate as we can throughout the day. When he's in the evening, I'm during my work day, so he can hand things off to me and expect to see him in the morning. And it's a lot of trust. He has put an immense amount of trust in me, for which I'm very pleased. But that's one thing we talk a lot about on Google+, is building that kind of trusting relationship with people, and it's just so important. You can't do it without trust.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something you can do over time, but it takes time. I'll do these tours with folks, and they'll say, well, okay, I'm kind of getting it, but what do I do with NOD3X? Well, NOD3X can show you those people that you may want to build a relationship with. But then it's up to you to do that, to pick it up and to start building that relationship. And it's worth it. I can tell you from experience, it is definitely worth the time. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember the NOD3X 30-day challenge way back in the day, which actually I think you still have going on, Lee, in the private community, right?
Yeah, it's always up and running.
Yeah, and I mean, I know from personal experience using NOD3X and bringing the nodes kind of together from the outside to the inside, it definitely works. I mean, you can get actionable engagement with new people immediately. But the last thing that I wanted to touch on that is the brand voice, because a lot of people do have problems between saying, well, what do I share to my brand, and how do I, because I have multiple people, how can I speak as the brand, but then again, I'm also myself at the same time. And one of the things that I've noticed with the NOD3X brand is that NOD3X always sounds like NOD3X. John, when John comes in, it always sounds like John. When you come in as Lee, it's always Lee. So how did you kind of bring that together? I mean, was there discussion, or was it just natural?
No, I'll pick up on that one. It's actually not a conversation we ever had, right? Primarily because, you know, I trust John implicitly, and knowing how he communicates online, I was perfectly happy with that. It's not something I had to instruct and say, this is how you speak corporate, you know, because if he did, then actually NOD3X isn't about corporate speak. You know, though for me, having a voice like that doesn't really work in the marketplace. It's not friendly. It's not approachable. Again, just speaking from my perception of what NOD3X as a brand is, you know, but just by getting in there, being conversational with people, and not, you know, not always trying to be, you know, geeky and long words, large words, and trying to blow people out the park with stuff. It's just like, you've got the brand, but you've got the micro brands beneath the brand or surrounding the brand, and those are the individuals that, you know, not just NOD3X, but any brand, and the personality should come through, right, of that individual. It doesn't. We're not trying to clone people here, you know, say, right, when you're doing this, you've got this hat on. You know, I wanted John to work because I liked his voice when he typed. Yeah, so for me, it was important that that continued, and of course it did, because it's not something that we actually had to discuss. But of course, there are instances where large organizations need to, you know, within their social media policy and procedures, need to say, these are the words that we use, these are the words that we don't use. You know, we never, you know, put down other brands, which is something that, you know, it's all automatically done between myself and John. But it's not something we'd ever do. But those kind of policies and procedures would need to be in place, you know, if you're unsure about who you're hiring, you know, or putting in on the front line of the brand, because not everybody can do front line of brand, you know, right? It
Right.
takes a certain character. You can learn to do it, and that's fine, but you do need to be mentored on it. And if you've been involved in social for a while, you kind of pick these things up anyway, you know, because you
Awesome.
understand.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think you made a great point there about trust. You know, also the talent that you have, being able to kind of just innately pick up on the fact of what is the brand voice, and then being able to distinguish between your own personal voice and what the brand voice is. I mean, that's really the definition of an advocate.
For me, actually, if I could just jump in for a second, to find the NOD3X voice for me was a matter of really loving what NOD3X is. You know, kind of, I'm taking it on as my own. You know, I'm sort of like, I have absolute, you know, pride in NOD3X. You know what I mean? So it's kind of easy for me to have the voice of NOD3X because it inspires me. It's something that I can get behind without even trying it. But it's something that I've chosen. You know, I think that maybe if you've got a new client that you're looking to run their page, you've got to find reasons to really love that client and what they're doing. You know, connect yourself.
You've got to understand them inside and out, almost like the DNA of them, in order to speak as them. If you don't understand it, then it's like being a salesperson, right? Unless you understand your product intrinsically, you're never going to be able to sell it, because you don't know features, benefits, and value, and all that kind of stuff.
That right there, everybody, is gold. Number one, John had a passion for the product. He loved it already. And number two, Lee was smart enough to pick up on that and hire John. But as a brand owner, that's something to look for. Don't just look for somebody who's looking for a job or a paycheck. Look for somebody who has a passion for what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've heard that come through with a couple other brands that we've talked to in the past. You know, especially where there's teams involved, and not just, you know, a solopreneur or a small company just also managing their brand page. But whenever there's a team involved, everybody we've talked to said the same thing. Everybody who runs the page loves what they do, and that comes through. And you know, a lot of the reasons that those guys were on our show was because of the fact that we noticed something about them and said, hey, you guys are really into this whole Google Plus thing? Would you like to, there's just this passion here. Would you like to come onto our show and talk about it? And each time that's happened, and we've seen that, illustrated yet again here. So there you go, guys. There's like Ben said, there's a huge takeaway here for finding people that you want to help, you want to bring in to help, not just advocate you, but also maybe run your page or be part of your social media team. And it goes beyond Google Plus. It's also Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere else. I mean, it's all social posting. It's all connecting with other people. So yeah, you got to be able to do that and do it with passion. Otherwise, the people they'll get to know that. They'll pick up on that, and who knows? Then there's going to be the one slip, and then you end up on like BuzzFeed.
Yeah, very much so. You're not wrong. I mean, just to kind of just finish that a little bit off, it's like if social media is a long game. Building up trust, has been a fundamental word here. Building relationships is a long-term thing. There's no magic bullet in anything that we do here. So you've got to have a belief and a passion in what you do in order to kind of carry you through the highs and the lows, right? Because it does take time. It takes a lot of work. But if you're deciding on, picking the right team and having them in the right place and all this kind of stuff, then it makes life a hell of a lot easier.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, that's all I got. That's perfectly. Thank you so much. So let's talk really quickly about how do you use NOD3X on a day-to-day basis for your business. And to round that out, for another person who's using NOD3X, how can they use it the most effectively, say in 15 minutes a day, to get the best return on engagement?
Okay. Can I start this one off, John?
Please do, yeah.
So NOD3X, I originally started it about 7 years ago, and I needed it in order to save me time. All right. So fundamentally, social media eats up a lot of time. There are a lot of distractions in there, and NOD3X, in the previous guise, is just that we're able to summarize things in such a way that I could give information quite quickly to our clients. So, but in order to get to that stage, I needed to know what questions I needed to ask, in terms of what answers I wanted, either for myself or from my clients, right? So there were things like, what topics are being discussed on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of these things. Is the tone of voice the same on each of those social channels, or is the terminology different? If the terminology is different, is it because people are just stuck in their ways using this kind of terminology? Would they be open to seeing, rather than the word mug, cup, is the response, the response still the same? Or are those platforms actually only going to respond to key triggers of certain phrases or hashtags or whatever? So I needed to understand that. And fundamentally, why did I need to understand that? Because we were providing, and still do, consultancy on what words should be used within brand messaging, copy for blogs, memes, video text, and scripts, all of this kind of stuff. And then it was basically saying, well, if you just change this and use these words for this in this piece of content, and on that platform use these words, at this specific time of day and day of the week, then you're aligning more with a potential audience rather than just trying to make them understand what you're trying to say from your perspective. All right. So that was a fundamental question. Then it was a case of, can we identify who the movers and shakers are on each of these platforms in order to start building relationships with them? And that was kind of like the aha moment for me, because rather than the traditional kind of let's mass market to everybody, from whatever brand or business, etc. If you can find people that are talking passionately, here we go again, passionately about a product or service, and you start to build a relationship with those people based upon how they're talking about it and also the engagement they're getting on their posts, then you don't have to target everybody, you know, or build relationships with people or with everybody. You only need to look at a handful of the people, 5%, to reach a tipping point where you're then engaging with people or these influencers, these movers and shakers that will actually have an effect on their own individual networks. And that's where the NOD3X graph really came about, looking at those key points. Because then, again, that's a time saver. If I don't have to, build relationships with 100,000 people, right? I just build relationships with 1,000 people, then that's great. It is a time saver.
And that's a lot what we talk about, is we talk about dialing in, like you said, to influencers. Because if you are able to dial in to, say, somebody who is very influential in the automotive industry, and they have an extremely wide net, you build a genuine relationship with that person using social network analysis, then you're able to get that person to genuinely want to introduce you to other people within that industry. Or maybe your end target, which is like the CEO of Toyota, who would never talk to you ever in this world, but because this person naturally introduces you to that person, then now you can start to build a relationship with that person and therefore get to your business goal.
I think what's important, just to clarify, when I use the words like target, we are targeted. Let's just say we can look around any way, shape, or form, or fluff it up, But we're targeting in such a way where we're adding value to their posts, not spamming on their posts. There's not a need here to find the conversations that are taking place on influencer posts and then just name drop yourself everywhere. There's just no need for that. You can do far more for yourself by reading the post, understanding it, digesting it, and going, you know what, that sparked this idea, therefore I'm just going to add that to their post, because that adds value. And then you're not only getting on their radar because you've added that value, but also on the engagers of that posts. If you're engaging with those people as well, you're not trying to, as a magnet, pull them over anywhere else. That will happen naturally if it's done correctly. That's the important bit.
Excellent points. Excellent points. So, John, can you speak a little bit to how you use NOD3X every single day for your business?
Yeah, joining the conversation. It's something that actually Michael Bennett and I talked about on G+Geek a while back, and that's it. Is NOD3X, what it does for me is it shows me those conversations that if I would like to become more influential or helpful to people within a topic, NOD3X says, hey, here are those conversations. All I have to do is join them, and like Lee said, add value to them or ask questions. Don't just say, hey, thanks for the post, whatever, but read through some of the comments, read the post, read the article, really connect with the material. And it's amazing who starts noticing. I mean, it just sort of happens organically and naturally. There's no need to try and, advertise yourself when you're doing it in this way. It's a longer game, it takes time, but the benefits and the results, I think, are far more solid. So on a daily basis, what I use NOD3X for is to join those conversations that are topically relevant to my interests.
Awesome. Yeah, that's, great, all great points. Yeah.
If I can just
add, I'm basically taking notes in the comments for those of you guys who are watching live, and just if I can, just wanted to recap real quick, because I think we talked a lot as far as, again, how John and Lee are using NOD3X as NOD3X. Is they're like any business would, they're trying to find a goal, a business goal, and a topic, something they may want to become a little more influential in. And they're doing a couple of things. First, they're saying, okay, how are people talking about this topic on different social networks and at different times? Again, going back to what Lee said about using mug versus cup, right? So just think of that in your head. People might be using different words on different networks or have a different sentiment or whatever. And what that does is when you are ready to post content to that network, that lets you craft a post that people are going to identify with. They may not realize why. Well, the fact is, it's because you learned how they speak and you're talking to them in their language. So you're adding value because you care about them, and as a result, that's coming back to you. So there's that, right? It'll help. So in other words, it'll help you create better social media posts, right? If we need to create like a cute little checklist for ourselves, there's one use of NOD3X. Number two would be to find the people who are more influential about certain topics and allow you to connect with them. And same thing, learn how they speak, learn who they're interacting with, and add value to their conversations instead of just link dropping and spamming and things like that. So that's another kind of another way that they're doing it. And because you can see everything all in one spot, both visually and across platforms, if you're using the Pro plan, you can start to see that, okay, well, maybe somebody that we found on Google Plus is actually super influential on Twitter. So let's talk to them on Twitter. Let's communicate with them on Twitter, because that's where we're going to be able to provide value to them that they'll notice. And if they do end up retweeting us, all of a sudden now we have much bigger exposure than we would have had if we were trying to force them into Google Plus. And I've noticed that, especially about people who've built pretty well-established audiences for themselves on certain social platforms.
Yeah, exactly.
So, since we're running a little bit over, and we do have that reveal that I promised everybody. First of all, everybody, call to action. If you could please do go ahead and click and tweet this out, because we're about to reveal something for the first time about NOD3X. And it's actually really exciting. It's going to take your game to a completely new level. We've been talking about monitoring. We've been talking about listening. We've been talking about getting interaction with conversations and with influencers. So, Lee, I'm going to be turning this over to you here really quickly. Up to right now, it's been Google+, Twitter, and Facebook. If you've upgraded, Google+ is free. Twitter and Facebook basically are part of the paid plan. Let's talk about the new hotness, which is LinkedIn and...
So we've got LinkedIn, we've got Vine, Tumblr, Instagram, and SlideShare, all coming on board over the next couple of weeks. And again, these will be part of a paid data plan. So again, at the moment, if someone's on Twitter but not on Facebook and wants to use NOD3X, then there's no point in paying for Facebook, right? Unless they want to do some research. So these are going to be able to be upgraded on an individual basis, and you can take what you need. Almost like a menu system. I prefer it because rather than trying to force food down people, they can just select if they want a main course and a dessert, or a starter and a main course, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So we're excited about getting all these new data streams coming in. Certainly from like the likes of Instagram. Pinterest will also be coming on board soon. I'm sure Stefan may like that. Yeah, it's the things of understanding. Vine is becoming increasingly popular. So again, there's a lot of activity going on there. Tumblr, there's a whole bunch of data going on there. So getting these and analyzing who influencers are, what people are talking about across different networks, again, is only going to help support and provide, we think, insights for people that can really put action to what they want to do.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you. Hey, Stefan, do you want to go ahead and bring us home?
Yeah, well, first I want to, Eileen Smith is very excited about Instagram. And clapping again. And yeah, that is really cool. So I want to bring up one last point before we bring it home from Kristen Kramer, who, thank you for watching all day. Appreciate that. She said she was going to watch this one, and she did the whole thing. So, but where she sees NOD3X being key is that it enables you to be more strategic in your social media approach and who you're connecting and conversing with. When you're more efficient in your efforts, you have more time to focus and hone in on being helpful and turning the corner to being a resource. I think that last part is the real clincher right there, because when you can be a resource, that's when those relationships are made, that's when those advocates are built, and that's when you really start to see some tremendous ROI from all of your efforts and time you're spending here.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah. So okay, here we go, guys. This is going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks, Ben, for doing a great job running point on this. Really appreciate that. And and also to Lee and John of NOD3X. You guys were fantastic. We all learned a ton. Read the event stream. There's a ton of different comments talking about this. Also, a couple little tiny housekeeping things. Please follow our page because that helps us invite more people. And we realized that this week. We learned the hard way. So please follow the page, subscribe on YouTube, all that other stuff. Join the email list at GPLUSSPOTLIGHT.com. We have our season finale next week, which will be our 33rd episode with Scott Scrowcroft and Jeff C. talking about repurposing all of this amazing content that we create every week with Hangouts and some ideas and how these guys can do that with Google+. So it's going to be a fantastic show, a lot to learn, and something to kind of good way to wrap up the summer with. And then on top of that, we're going to be really digging into our email subscribers to get a lot more information out of you guys as far as what you want to make this a valuable use of your time every week. So join the email list at GPLUSSPOTLIGHT.com, please. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next week on Google Plus Business Spotlight. Thanks a lot.
And last thing.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Lee. Everybody in the audience, please give a nice shout out to Lee and John. They're doing an awesome job with NOD3X. And that's, by the way, it's NOD3X.com. All right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.